Wall Street Bets is putting their eyes back on GameStop once again with a $190,000 earnings YOLO. Somebody's betting 190K on GameStop calls coming up on their earnings. And yes, we finally got the actual release from GameStop as to when they are reporting earnings, and it is September 9th, right around the corner. The first thing I want to talk about is we are at a very, very important point with the Bollinger Band indicator. This indicates a expansion move up or down, and we assume it is going to be up for several reasons that I could give you and break down to you. First things first, these are the Bollinger Bands. They are heavily contracted, and over the last 4 days, they are even more contracted than they have been contracted over the past few weeks. And prior to that, we saw an expansion move out of this where they open up widely, and we had a major run from 25 to about $38. The same thing happened during May, the beginning of May, when GameStop ran up to $80. The Bollinger Bands got tight for a very brief moment. They contracted and then had a huge expansion move. And the same thing during the January 2021 run up. They contracted heavily before beginning to move to the upside. On top of that, the JPY 10-year yield is continuing to rise to historic levels we haven't seen since 2008. Now, this is a slow grind, so it's slowly putting pressure on not only GameStop swaps, AMC swaps, but actually risk assets behind the scenes if you actually understand how this works. A lot of liquidity relies on these carry trades. Now, there is a little bit of tin going on. Treehouse Brewing posting a red can. The world needs more sap. Are they hinting at more downside for GameStop? If we look on the weekly time frame, is it bearish? Well, yes and no. The chart ultimately looks bearish for a breakdown, but the other reasons why it doesn't look bearish is that we have still a weekly golden cross to the upside on GameStop for the weekly time frame, which is very bullish, but also we are basing on a huge level where GameStop could actually buy back the entire float. Plus, their earnings coming up is likely to show that they made a lot of money from power packs and show their new business model instead of just being an old game brick and mortar store where people actually don't go in anymore and they actually just buy digital games, but they are transforming the entire business model. Now, what they did was they purchased Bitcoin. They purchased Bitcoin somewhere in this region right here, and they are indefinitely in profit on this Bitcoin and or have sold for realized gains. And if that shows up on the balance sheet for this earnings, in which case it will if they did sell for a profit, then that will be huge for the company, also blowing out their earnings, and those Wall Street bet YOLOs can look very well. On top of that, we are going to shift into AMC. AMC will likely move with GameStop, but how will AMC move? How can we front run it? And then will GameStop follow AMC? Well, this is where GameStop reports earnings. It also lines up with where we see AMC having moves higher. We actually see the moves higher starting a little bit prior to that, probably midweek, the first week of September. But we are going to watch Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic and AMC correlate heavily, and Ethereum and GameStop correlate heavily. And what I can tell you right now is Ethereum is not in any way, shape, or form looking bearish. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. I want to see AMC break back into this wedge above $3 very soon over the next 3 to 4 days before we can sort of build a move. But also, importantly enough, that does not necessarily matter. AMC loves to spike higher. It doesn't like to climb higher. And we saw a very prime example recently back in May when GameStop was rallying. AMC wasn't moving until it actually moved. Now let's talk about Ethereum because GameStop and Ethereum's chart correlate heavily together. Since this time frame back in June, where Ethereum has been flat, GameStop didn't really get a move. And just to show you right here, this is what I'm talking about. And then on GameStop, this is what I'm talking about. Since this time frame of GameStop trading flat, Ethereum has actually decided that it wanted to rally higher, while GameStop has not moved. Okay, so we are already technically owed this sort of run up to the top of this resistance level, this descending resistance trend line right around $31, $32. We are technically lagging behind, which settles for a gap up. On top of that, JPY, both of these times it hit all-time highs. GameStop had major moves up. This was back May 2024, and then of course March of 2025. If we look at the same thing on GameStop's chart, we can see, well, March of 2025, somewhere following this, we had this peak at 38, and then May of 2024, we had this peak at 60 to $80, right? So all of the pressure is built behind the scenes on top of them not releasing their gains on Bitcoin just yet. Now let's talk about Bitcoin very quickly. Well, real quick before we jump into that, Ethereum, where is Ethereum going? I had an initial target of 5,800. However, if we get some positive news coming over the horizon and it's all positive and we get some sort of not super cycle, but one last pump and euphoric state into altcoins as Bitcoin dominance slips, then I do believe Ethereum can go into this region between 7,300 and 8K. Following that, I do have some levels we'll evaluate further. Now, what is going on with Bitcoin? We held a key support level at 109K. We didn't hold 111, but we are pressing up against it, breaking back over, kind of trying to decide if we are going to rally, trading at 112K. Here is what I want you to note. If we lose 104,000, in my opinion, Bitcoin gets very bearish. I see this as a liquidity zone or a major support zone that you can see these candles decided to top out at December of 2024. And then following that, we couldn't really hold. In fact, we tried to slip out of this trend back in June as well. I believe if we lose 104K on Bitcoin, everybody has their level that invalidates it. I think Bitcoin is going into a bear winter. Now, we will lose that at some point, but the question is, are we going to test 131,000 before we lose that is the real question that we have going forward. Now, NVIDIA posts earnings tonight, and somebody bought $7 million worth of $174 puts. What's so interesting about that is I am also in puts, right? And I've stated that to you guys. However, NVIDIA had this bullish engulfing candle the week of August 4th, and then it had two red candles with the wick being bought up under 172 and us trading back in this channel, which is technically bullish, and so is the overall market. I said if NVIDIA has a good earnings, the market's going to push up on 645 to 645.50, but we're trading at 646, which is so interesting. However, I do want to point out that the SPY is trading way outside of its historical high region. Anywhere in this zone is very overbought, in my opinion, on the S&P 500, and we are due for a major pullback. But is that going to happen? Is NVIDIA going to be the catalyst for that to happen, or is it going to be Q2 GDP Thursday, August PCE Friday, or is it going to be the rate decision mid-September? I do want to point out that I also stated anything above 646 CTAs or algorithms will be selling. When will they also be selling? Well, if we get a hot PCE report or GDP report, ultimately that is just not good, right? A hot PCE report Friday, which will not be good. These CTAs will not only be selling at 646, but they will be selling hard, front running the news that the Fed will not do what the Fed has to do, or that they are in a stickier situation than we initially assumed. Guys, let me know your thoughts on NVIDIA. I want to give you a sympathy play right here that's also risky for NVIDIA. Even though NVIDIA is building sort of this bullish base narrative for earnings, we can still have a large wick down on NVIDIA and close below 172 or open below 172 post earnings. My ultimate target for downside is 157.60. If we do get a move higher, I do want to note that this move will probably reject somewhere around 195 or I just don't see it breaking 200, but again, I could be very wrong. I think SMCI will have a sympathy play, and SMCI's chart actually looks pretty good. We're pressing up on $45 resistance, and on the weekly time frame, I think it has this beautiful W pattern that is formed in the chart right here, right? And I do believe that this will ultimately coming into next year, January of 2026, hit 85.90. That is my ultimate target. I'll come back to this probably way later in the year or during this time frame to see if that actually gets hit. I see SMCI continuing to climb higher, and ultimately, if that does happen, I think NVIDIA will also climb. But I do still believe we need some sort of correction or sell-off. Bitcoin is looking like it's front-running the correction as the SPY doesn't, and as these tech stocks don't. But ultimately, guys, I don't want to ramble on too long. That is what I got for you guys for today's video. As always, I do want to know in the comments down below, what is it that you guys actually mainly want me to cover? What are you mostly interested in? I want to talk about what you guys want to hear, and I want to do the research for you. I do promote some things, but there are very few things that I promote that I actually own myself, but here they are, and I would appreciate it if you checked them out. The number one thing is the Discord server. It's the top link in the description that'll take you to this page, and it will take you into a group chat with me and the most amazing traders who talk stocks and crypto all day long. On top of that, we have tons and tons of benefits in the Discord server. So if you come in there, you guys will not regret getting in those benefits. If you paid for alone, would be $300 plus for the alerts that you get. Next thing that I own is all I'm pushing today is my custom indicator. That link will take you to this chart where you can turn it on your trading view charts, and it can detect patterns and forecast a window as to what the stock will do next. It also has pattern finders and auto detection for price targets, price forecasts, that it will give you a pattern, and then it will also give you a price target. So very, very important. Those two links, top of the description of the video. Overall, guys, that is it. I love you all. God bless. Lottery Stocks out.